Hey, a Folk Studio here. So today's daily, we're going to be looking at Paradoxical's Graves. Now, Paradoxical is a cool player. He's on Mono Esports. He used to be known as Mr. Paradoxical. Now he's Paradoxical or Paradoxical, depending on your connotation and sexuality. Now, he normally plays mid, but today's replay we're going to be looking at is Graves. I think he wants to keep some of his replays hidden because, he is playing on a tournament. Why dissect his role and how he plays before that tournament? His Graves is pretty cool though. This is a very exciting replay, very fun. He's very aggressive in lane. I love it. I love bot lane aggression. So let's go check out that replay and hop in. So first things first, let's see who's playing who. We got Paradoxical on Graves, Heaven's Curse on Ari, Reginald on Kog'Maw, Inverted Composer on Janna, Raydir on Shyvana, Voyboy on Renekton, Jakiro on Xerath, Lobster Godlike on Mundo, Deaths on Blitzcrank, the first one on Sivir. So Graves' early game is very, very interesting. He does not have a standard, I want to go ahead and poke early game. He doesn't have the range for it, but he can trade. He can trade like a madman because he has so much extra armor and magic resist from his passive. Add in the fact that his Q does incredibly high damage if you're close to him. He wants to get up close and personal as much as he can, but if he doesn't have a way to get in, it's not really worth it. Now, golems are going to go kind of terribly. It's very interesting what this Janna does. I think she's scared about golems leashing and being very, very odd. Sometimes you'll pull golems a bit too far and they'll just run back and heal to full. So she just tanks them, but she has a regrowth pendant, and I understand why. She wants to be very, very defensive. She wants to heal any harass. And even though it loses ward coverage, now she can tank the golems and not really lose anything. Look at her HP go up. It's just skyrocketing. Unfortunately, she only has one ward. And when you're in a case like this where you only have one ward, and Blitzcrank, by the way, only has one ward himself, you need to tell your jungler, you need to tell your team. They need to know, by the way, we can gank bottom because they don't have a ward. Now, Blitzcrank went forward to try and be aggressive, but what's he gonna do on his own over there? He's a very scary character in the context of him grabbing you and knocking you up in the air. That's incredibly damaging, very scary. But level 1 Blitzcrank separated from his carry isn't gonna do a whole lot. So if you see someone in a position like that where they're kind of overextended, just go punish them, go hit them. In that case, they just traded much, much better. And as you can see, Graves is winning trades. He deals a little more damage, he has a little more HP. Anytime Sivir does damage and he does damage at the same time, he's gonna win. So he's got to keep that up, keep up that pressure. Preferably keep up the passive too, but that can be very, very weird in lane and lead to some weird lane pushing. And one thing I love about Blitzcrank lanes is you just see that hook come in every now and then. Just that fist is in the air, and it's like, oh no, oh no. Will it hit? Will it land? This Blitzcrank is actually pretty good. He's fairly consistent about landing his hooks. Laning is a bit hard, though. If you look at Paradoxical's positioning, he's making sure that he's either next to a creep or behind them. Now, that's a good grab. That's a grab that can lead to a kill, but Graves is pretty fast, and what do you do in this situation? Well, you can go for Graves, but he's going to be hard to kill, or you can try and catch Janna. Unfortunately, Janna has a lot of HP and she has her heal up, so there is no real easy solution. Blitzcrank gets a bit too close, but he has to do it to save Sivir from Graves. And the Janna heal comes into play and saves the day. Now, saving your heal for situations like that is awesome. I see a lot of people use heal very, very early. You want to use heal in one of two times. One, if you know that they're going to ignite you when you're low. And two, you want to use it as a last minute kind of bait. Now right there, they may have not needed to heal. That heal may have not been necessary, but Janna waited until she knew, okay, I gotta save this guy, and I'm gonna do everything I can and press this button. Had they not used it, you know what, they would have that cooldown available for later, but they had to, and they waited till the very, very end to bust it out, which is good. It can also lead to some awesome baits, where people are just diving you when you actually have a bunch of extra HP they don't realize. And Paradoxical is not too keen on being aggressive with his spells. He knows Sivir can shield them. He likes blowing her shield. Now, this Mundo gank's very interesting. It's really, really hard to get away from Blitzcrank, especially in a position like that. Running in a straight line by a wall, he doesn't have anywhere to juke. The Mundo exhaust, just the pressure is going to catch him. Now, Janna can actually save Graves, but she makes a mistake. That tornado's great, misses Sivir, but it's okay. But she shields herself an accident, and she doesn't absorb that cleaver. As a support, if you need to take a skill shot to keep your carry alive, go for it. It's going to be strong, it's going to be awesome. If you die in the process, that sucks, but if you're saving someone who's more important than you, it's okay. Now, look at Sivir CS. It's 21 CS to 28 on Graves. Now, that's not a huge difference, but when that gank started, Graves was at the enemy tower. Sivir missed a bunch of experience and gold because they chased Graves. And they did get that kill on him. They did get something out of it, but he didn't really fall behind. Now, it's very important to balance out kills and CS. You don't want to have too much reliance on kills or too much reliance on CS and you'll never be able to go for a kill. In this case, Graves is being put into positions where he's getting some aggression, he might get a kill, but every time he's in danger, he's not really losing any CS. Right there, he got pulled to the tower. Scary as hell, he could have died. But did he lose any CS? He lost a couple. He did lose some, but only because he was pushed to the tower. So it was a safe time to get grabbed. Now, I love this pressure from Deaths in the first one. They split up Janna and Graves. So Janna has to stay in back. She cannot really fight. And it looks like they're focusing Graves. Right now I'd say they're going to try and kill Graves, but they see that opportunity to go for Janna and they kill her. That grab from Blitzcrank was smart. Usually when you're a support, you got to make sure, you're out of range of things like that. But the pressure looked like it was going somewhere. It was essentially a trick. Even a magic trick even, where they distracted you in one way by pressuring Graves, but they went for the Janna kill instead. Now, you never want to just devote your focus to one person. I remember playing Warcraft 3, and I saw a 1v1, I was spectating it. I saw one guy send all of his units to attack a Death Knight, who ran around in circles, did die at the end, but the guy chasing him lost his entire army to kill one character. This happens in League of Legends a lot. You'll see 5 guys chasing one person. They'll get him in the end, but they'll lose everybody. And it's really funny. So as you can see, Graves just does a ton of damage. He doesn't have the mana to finish off Sivir, sadly. He has incredibly high mana costs, and that dive was a bit too much. Paradoxical knows he can be aggressive. He knows that if he gets any more advantage, Sivir's essentially screwed. The problem Sivir has is she can't trade with Graves. If she uses her spell shield, she can only absorb one spell out of a possible 3 that can hit her. So Graves is just trying to put as much pressure down, be as offensive as possible, and go for these kills. Unfortunately, he does die in the process, but that doesn't make Sivir's kit any better at fighting Graves. The attack speed debuff she gives to herself buff is going to be nice, but not enough. And great play from Reginald here. He flashes to dodge the ult from Jakiro, and just burns down the already low Lobster Godlike, and then uses the Cog passive to finish off Blitzcrank. I love Cog passive because it makes it very hard to kill Kog'Maw without getting a trade. Kog'Maw is someone who you can CC and burst him instantly, but if he has any time to do damage, he's gonna deal a ton. In that case, Lobster was already low, but he was still able to burn him down to a killable level. Or actually just burn him down to kill him. And then Deaths was trying to support from the side, but sadly, he was picked off by Kog'Maw. So, I love Kog'Maw passive. I think it's a bit weird, but, it can be pretty awesome. Now, Sivir is just terrified of Graves at this point. There's very little she can do to defend herself. That dash, the attack speed buff on his E, he's going to have a lot more options up more often than Sivir will have. She can spell shield, but that has a long cooldown. She has her ult, but that has a long cooldown. She doesn't have the equivalent to a dash, and her nuke is not as reliable. It is not that hard to land a Graves Q versus a Sivir Q. And unfortunately, in situations like this, you just kind of have to passively farm. and it really sucks, especially because she's getting zoned. However, Blitzcrank has left the lane. He might be able to do some damage, but he's being very, very roamy, which is not what his bot lane really needs right now. I love this play from Paradoxical. So a lot of players will go to this pit to use it as an escape. You can E over that wall, you can flash over that wall, you can get out. Instead, this was used as bait to keep deaths in a position to get a kill on. And good shields from Janna, good ult from Janna, just to keep Paradoxical alive. Sivir shielded it, but that's not what he wanted. He just wanted the HP on Graves. Had Sivir gotten knocked back, it would have been nice, but who cares? And I really like these mind games that are just going on in this game. Blitzcrank hooking the Janna when you expect him to focus on Graves. Blitzcrank being led into a trap by Graves. These little mind games can really have a huge impact. Because you're not using numbers, you're not using your character, you're just using a bit of trickery to get ahead. Now, he sold his potion to buy a BF sword. That is a great idea. If you're not going to use your potions, I mean, 3 potions this late in the game isn't going to be all that useful. Just go ahead, buy the item that will make you a murderer. And just look at the damage he puts out on Sivir. There's very little she can do to not get murdered. Now, she does not spell shield right here. I don't know if she would have survived if she had. Possibly, but one of those spells was going to hit. And any auto attack follow-up might have been enough to get that final kill. And what do you do with Sivir in this case? This is one of those cases where, honestly, not much. You gotta jungle, you gotta wait for the creep waves to hit your tower, but clearly Graves is in a position where if he's even close to Sivir and she's not by the tower, she's gonna die. And at this point you have to start calling for ganks on bottom. You really need help, but if Xerath is bottom, Kog'Maw is mid, free farming. And right now, Xerath is doing pretty decently against Reginald. Now, this is what they need to do bottom. They need this pressure. They need this really high damage. Blitzcrank coming in and just ruining Paradoxical's day is huge. But even then, the first one's still almost dead. And Tornado actually finishes her off, knocking her out of the bush. And while that was a good trade, it's great to go 1 for 1. You know, killing a carry for a carry, and then blowing a bunch of summoners on the other team. It's still a bad sign. And this isn't going to make the lane any easier for Sivir in the long run. When you're ahead in the bot lane, it can be very, very hard to catch up if your character doesn't allow for it. Or not ahead, when you're behind. Like, Kog'Maw can be behind, but Kog'Maw can turn into Kog'Maw and win. Now, they're going to go for Dragon on blue side, and this is kind of what they need to do. They need to start going for these objectives, because they're not doing too well in laning. They are hitting kills, but they're having huge problems bot lane. And I love how this exchange goes. Reginald flashes to avoid Xerath, and to kill Lobster. Lobster is tanking Dragon right now, and he just doesn't have the HP to actually survive against Reginald. Now, Lobster is dead. There is no smite for purple side. Paradoxical actually picks up Dragon with an auto attack. And the chase is on. They blew a lot of resources on Shyvana, on Kog'Maw. They weren't really able to accomplish anything, though. They were just too low from the Dragon, and they lost a team fight. It's really unfortunate when you're in a situation like Lobster Cloud, where you need to kill Dragon, but you don't have the HP to really tank it. In that case, someone else needed to take the reins and needed to take the damage. And once they see Blitzcrank here, they start playing defensively. They know that, you know what, maybe we'll win a fight, but there's no need to risk it. We're doing super well. Graves at this rate is going to be so much scarier than Sivir ever will be. So just kind of wait back, sit, and go for the kills that come to you, but don't try and take these huge risks. Now, that's it for part 1. In part 2, we're going to start seeing some awesome team fights. Just to compare, Graves is ahead by 60 CS at this point. There was not a whole lot Sivir could do about it. But we'll see the rest of the team fight made in part 2. The studio saying, see you then.